My name is Matt. I'm 32 years old, and 6 months ago, my wife leaned across the table on our wedding anniversary, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "I want an open marriage. I've already started." That was the moment I stopped breathing. Not literally, though. I did forget how to swallow for a second, but emotionally, I flatlined, the candle flickering between us, the pasta turning cold, the wine I barely tasted. None of it mattered after that sentence. What do you say when the person you built your life with tells you they've already moved on, without actually leaving? Let me back up. We'd been married 6 years, no kids, dual incomes, a modest apartment in Brooklyn with creaky floors and a leaky faucet I kept saying I'd fix. She worked in digital media. I was in commercial design office spaces, co-working startups, the usual. By most metrics, we were the typical millennial couple figuring it out, but metrics don't show the silence, the way someone can be in the room with you and still feel miles away. At first, I chalked up Rachel's distance to stress, late hours, new deadlines. Her team had just merged with another agency. I gave her space. I cooked her favorite meals. I picked up the dry cleaning. I even downloaded those therapy podcasts she kept raving about, though let's be real, I never made it past episode 2. But then I noticed the shift. She'd walk in, earbuds still in, and barely mutter hey, straight to the shower, no hug, no "how was your day?" I'd be standing there like an idiot, a full plate of homemade stir-fry getting cold, pretending that Netflix could fill the void she left behind. And the scariest part, I started believing it was my fault. There's a specific kind of loneliness that comes from being ignored by someone who used to adore you. I wasn't asking for a fireworks display, just a smile, a moment of eye contact. Instead, I got mumbled "s" while she scrolled Instagram during dinner. Eventually, I stopped setting the table. I stopped talking altogether. Because every time I tried to bridge the silence, "Hey, you okay? You've seemed off lately," I was met with eye rolls or that flat, tired tone. Not everything has to be a big dramatic thing, Matt. She'd say she was working on herself, journaling, therapy, inner work. And listen, I supported that. I wanted her to feel good in her own skin, but what she called growth started to feel like absence. She wasn't showing up, not for the marriage, not for me, not even for her own damn dinner. I remember one night, I came home to pitch blackness. I thought maybe she wasn't there. Then I saw the glow of her laptop from the bedroom. She was on the floor, cross-legged, earbuds in, scribbling furiously in that leather-bound journal she carried like a Bible. I stood in the doorway for 30 seconds. She didn't look up, didn't flinch. When she finally noticed me, she said, "Oh, hey, I didn't hear you come in." I replied, "I've been in the kitchen for 20 minutes. Her response, "Oh, did you eat?" Like I was her roommate, not her husband. The apartment didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a waiting room. No music, no conversation, just the hum of appliances and the occasional door clicking shut. She didn't ask how I was doing. She didn't ask anything. So I stopped talking. I stopped hoping. I started staying late at work, taking the long route home, lingering at bars with coworkers. Because sometimes, even sitting at a sticky counter sipping warm beer was less lonely than sitting across from your wife while she acts like you're invisible. Then came the day that turned everything on its head. Our anniversary. Neither of us had made plans. That should have been the first red flag. We ended up at this Italian place around the corner. Cheap wine, overcooked pasta, some indie playlist playing too loud in the background. We barely spoke. I thought maybe we'd talk about taking a trip, or how we used to eat here when we were broke and happy. Instead, she reached across the table and took off her wedding ring. Not dramatically, just casually, like she was wiping her hand. Then she said it. "I've been thinking about this for a while. I want to try something new. I want to open the marriage." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. She was dead serious, calm, almost clinical. "Monogamy feels unnatural to me." She said it the way someone might say, "I'm going vegan." Like this was a lifestyle upgrade, not a nuclear bomb. And here's the thing: I could have yelled. I could have stormed out. I could have flipped the table. But I didn't. I froze. Because in that moment, I realized this wasn't a request. This was a notification. She wasn't asking for permission. She was letting me know she'd already made the decision. The late nights, the locked phone, the vague work friend stories. It all made sense now. And just to twist the knife a little deeper, she added, "It's not like you'll have girls lining up for you anyway, Matt." That one cut through everything. Not just because it was cruel, but because we'd been together since college. I never needed anyone else. I never wanted anyone else. So. I'd been all in. I chose her every single day, and now she was telling me to my face that I wasn't worth wanting. But what she didn't realize is that the man she was dismissing, the one she thought would just fade into the background while she explored her truth, he was about to show up. Not to beg, not to chase, but to evolve. And let me tell you something. Open marriage sounds very different when you're the one getting left out. She thought I'd stay small. She thought I'd stay safe. But she forgot. Even quiet men have limits. I'll show you what happened when the ghost she married started coming back to life. And trust me, it starts with a gym membership. And ends with a look she never expected to see on my face again. After that night, something inside me cracked. Not shattered, no. A clean, quiet fracture. You know how people say you hit rock bottom and bounce? I didn't bounce. I leveled out, like a man lying flat on cold marble, staring at the ceiling, realizing there's nothing left to lose. And in that stillness, that awful, ringing silence, a question came to me. What if she's wrong? What if I'm not the unwanted, uninteresting man she's convinced herself I am? What if I'm more? But before I could answer that, I had to live like it was possible. The next morning, I woke up early, earlier than usual. The bed beside me was empty, no surprise. Rachel had taken to sleeping in the guest room. Something about needing space for energy work, whatever that meant. I stared at the ceiling. Then I got up, pulled on a hoodie, laced up some old running shoes. And I went for a jog. I hadn't run in months. My legs burned before I reached the corner. My breath caught in my throat like it was allergic to fresh air. But I kept going. 1 block, then 2, then 5. Not because I thought it would fix anything, but because I needed to do anything that wasn't about her. That week, I did something else I hadn't done in years. I looked at myself in the mirror, really looked. Dark circles, slouched shoulders, the kind of man who had gotten used to blending into the background. So I fixed that. I booked a haircut, cleaned up the beard, bought a gym membership at a place down the block. It wasn't fancy. Half the treadmills squeaked, but it smelled like sweat and effort and starting over. There's something strange about reclaiming yourself. You don't do it all at once. It's in little things. Choosing grilled chicken instead of pizza, taking the stairs, making eye contact with the barista and not looking away. Rachel didn't notice at first, or maybe she pretended not to. She still came home late, earbuds in, always typing furiously into her notes app like she was decoding the secrets of the universe. Our conversations, if you could call them that, were mostly logistics. Did the package arrive? Can you Venmo me for groceries? I'm using the car Tuesday night. One evening, I came home to find a stranger in my kitchen. Not literally, it was Vanessa. Yes, that Vanessa, the one who introduced Rachel to relationship awakening and ethical non-monogamy. She was perched on our bar stool like she owned the place, sipping green tea and scrolling on her phone. Her smile when she saw me was thin, almost amused.
Oh, hey, Matt, still around.
I nodded, then opened the fridge and took out a beer. Silent rebellion. Vanessa was exactly the kind of woman who thinks she's the main character in every room. Oversized scarf, expensive perfume. She laughed like she wanted the neighbors to hear. I listened from the bedroom as she and Rachel talked in the kitchen. Snippets drifted in. You deserve passion. Don't shrink to fit anyone else's box. Most men wouldn't allow this, but Matt seems manageable. Manageable. Like I was a pet, or a piece of IKEA furniture that didn't need instructions. I stared at the ceiling again, but this time, it wasn't stillness. It was fuel. I leaned into my new routine, early mornings at the gym, podcasts in my headphones, not the healing kind, but stuff that made me feel alive. Motivation, business, psychology. I started standing straighter, smiling more. Even my coworkers noticed. Maya from marketing invited me to trivia night. Jake from logistics asked if I'd lost weight. And Kara Sweet, funny. Kara from accounting started timing her lunch breaks to match mine. None of it was cheating, but all of it was living. And for the first time in over a year, I felt seen. One night, Rachel came home early. I was in the living room, talking to Kara on speaker, just laughing about some dumb thing her cat did. Rachel paused in the doorway. She didn't say anything, just watched, like she didn't recognize the man sitting on her couch. The man who used to beg for attention, who used to wait by the door like a loyal retriever, now laughing confident, calm like the room belonged to him. Later that week, she brought up dinner. "Let's eat together tonight," she said. First time in months. She set the table, lit a candle, even wore perfume. And I'll admit part of me hoped, not for reconciliation, but for clarity, for her to say, "I see you now. I'm sorry." Instead, mid-meal, she asked, "Are you seeing someone?" I looked her in the eye, took a slow sip of water. "I'm not seeing anyone," I said. Her face tightened. The fork paused halfway to her lips. "So, this is what revenge?" I shook my head. "This is reality catching up to you." And here's the kicker, the real twist. She wasn't angry. She was scared. Not of me, but of losing something she never thought she could. Because Rachel always believed I'd be the one waiting, the safe option, the fallback plan. She opened the marriage thinking she'd soar. What she didn't expect was that I might fly higher. And I wasn't done yet. Not even close. It's strange how quickly people notice when you stop chasing them. Rachel used to breeze in and out of the apartment like she was passing through a hotel lobby. Now, she lingered. I'd find her in the living room at odd hours, curled up with a book she hadn't touched in years, pretending to read, but always glancing toward the door. She'd ask about my day, my lunch, even what gym I'd joined, questions that, 6 months ago, would have earned me an eye roll or a distracted grunt. It wasn't guilt. It was curiosity and control, because the moment she realized I was no longer orbiting around her, she panicked. That's the thing about people who take you for granted. They only miss you when you stop needing them. One night, I came home late. Not to be petty, just had drinks with Kara and a few folks from work. Nothing romantic, just lightness, laughter that didn't feel forced. When I opened the front door, Rachel was sitting on the couch, wearing that gray hoodie she always stole from me back in college, the one that smelled like bonfires and October. She looked up, half smiling. "Hey, didn't hear you come in." I almost laughed. It was word for word what I used to say to her, back when she was the one staying out late. "Yeah," I said, hanging my coat. "I didn't want to wake you." She hesitated. "Then you smell like cinnamon," I smiled. Kara made snickerdoodles. A flash of something in her eyes, jealousy, disbelief. I didn't push. I just walked to the kitchen, grabbed some water, and said goodnight. The next morning, the khaki button-down I'd been saving for client pitches was ironed and hanging on the bedroom door. Rachel hadn't ironed my clothes in 2 years. And just like that, I realized she was trying, but not because she loved me, because she felt me slipping away. Vanessa stopped showing up, whether it was awkwardness or something else. I didn't ask. Instead, Rachel started talking more about therapy, her shadow work, her inner child. I nodded politely, listened, but inside, I was calculating. Not because I wanted revenge. I wanted clarity. I needed to know if I left. Was it freedom or failure? Then came the dinner invitation. Not from Rachel, from Kara. She asked if I wanted to join her and some friends at this rooftop place in the city. Casual, no pressure. I hesitated, then said yes. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, clean shave, rolled sleeves, new scent, and for the first time in years, I felt handsome. Not for anyone else, for me. Dinner was great. Her friends were witty, warm, a little chaotic in the best way. At one point, someone spilled a drink and we all laughed until we cried. Kara leaned in and whispered, "I like this version of you." I smiled, but my stomach turned, because I wasn't sure who this version was yet, but I liked him, too. I got home late, almost midnight. As I opened the door, the living room light flicked on. Rachel was sitting there, arms crossed, mascara smudged, a half-empty glass of wine on the table. "You were with her." No question mark, just accusation. I took off my jacket slowly. "Her name is Kara. Are you sleeping with her? Are you sleeping with anyone I shot back?" She blinked, then whispered, "Not anymore." Silence, heavy, dense, like the entire room inhaled and didn't exhale. "I didn't think you'd actually go through with it," she said quietly. "What, moving on?" "No," she said, "becoming someone." Ouch, but I didn't flinch. "That's the difference between us." I said, "You needed to tear me down to grow. I just needed space, oh." She stood up, walked to the kitchen, back turned, and said the thing I'll never forget. "You were supposed to wait for me to come back." Wait, like a loyal pet, a placeholder, an emotional couch cushion. That sentence, that entitlement, was the final nail. The next morning, I packed a bag, nothing dramatic, just enough for a week. I didn't tell her where I was going. I just left a note. "If you ever decide to see me as a man, not a mattress, we can talk. Until then, I'm rediscovering the parts of me you forgot existed." I checked into a quiet Airbnb across town, clean, sparse, peaceful. And I breathed. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I had lungs again. Then, just as I was starting to think I might finally be free, I got a text. From her. Not Rachel. Vanessa. "Coffee? I think we should talk. Alone." The woman who tried to break my marriage wants to confess something, but what she says, it changes everything. And trust me, Rachel has no idea what's coming next. You won't want to miss it. I almost didn't go. When Vanessa texted me out of the blue, "Coffee, I think we should talk. Alone." Every bone in my body told me to ignore her. She was the one who whispered poison into Rachel's ear, the one who wrapped betrayal in therapy buzzwords and called it empowerment. She lit the match that burned my marriage. But curiosity, that's a tricky thing, especially when it comes wrapped in closure, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to understand why someone would sabotage another person's life like that. So I texted back 10 a.m., Two Bridges Cafe, 1 hour. She was already there when I arrived, perched by the window, sipping something iced and overpriced, dressed in her usual curated chaos oversized glasses, vintage jacket, rings on every other finger. When she saw me, she smiled, but it wasn't smug. It was tired. "Hey, Matt, Vanessa." We sat. The air was thick with the kind of tension you don't talk through, you slice through. She didn't waste time. "I owe you an apology," she began. I raised an eyebrow. "Really?" She nodded slowly, wrapping her hands around her glass like it grounded her. "I thought I was helping Rachel. I truly did. She was miserable, disconnected. I figured opening the marriage would give her freedom, excitement, maybe even bring her back to you. Eventually, I didn't think you'd actually drift apart." I couldn't help but laugh, sharp and humorless. "You thought cheating would fix our relationship, not cheating," she corrected, just reimagining the terms. That was the moment I realized Vanessa lived in a world where words bent to fit desire, where redefining boundaries was just another way of crossing them. But then, she surprised me. "Rachel never told you the full truth." I leaned in, heartbeat thudding. What truth? Vanessa hesitated, then said quietly, "There wasn't just one person. It wasn't just me nudging her. There was someone else, a guy, from her office. They'd been involved for a while, long before she brought up the open marriage." The words landed like a punch to the chest. My throat dried. So it was never about exploration. No, her voice was soft now. It was about justification. She needed to rewrite the story, make you the boring, safe one, so she wouldn't feel like the villain. I sat back, trying to process it. Somehow, that hurt more than anything, not because she'd slept with someone, but because she'd built a whole narrative where I was the dead weight, the anchor dragging her down. And I had believed her. Vanessa leaned in. "I'm not telling you this to hurt you. I just thought you deserve the full picture, and maybe to say I'm sorry for my part in it." I studied her face. For once, she looked human, not theatrical, not manipulative, just a woman who'd finally seen the consequences of her games. I nodded, didn't forgive, but I acknowledged. Sometimes, that's all people get. When I left the cafe, the sun hit different, sharper, like it was cutting away everything I hadn't wanted to see. And I knew what I had to do. I didn't go back to the Airbnb that night. I went home. Rachel was on the couch, flipping through an old photo album, one we hadn't touched in years. She looked up, startled. "Matt, we need to talk," I said. She sat up straighter, like she'd been expecting a reconciliation, a romantic speech. Instead, I sat across from her and said I know about him. Her face changed instantly. Gone was the soft-eyed regret. In came the tight jaw, the darting gaze. "Vanessa told you," she whispered. I nodded. "You could have told me yourself." She laughed bitterly. "And what would that change? You'd still leave." "No," I said, "but at least you'd have left with dignity." She looked away, wiping at invisible tears. I thought I wanted more, but now I just feel hollow. And maybe that was true. Maybe she did feel the emptiness now, but it was hers to sit with, not mine to fix. Before I left the room, I turned back and asked, "Was there ever a version of this where we made it?" Rachel looked up. "Only if you had changed first." She paused. "But I see now. You didn't need to." That was the closure I didn't know I needed. I stayed away after that. No texts. No just checking in. She tried once, sent me an old photo of us at the lake, captioned, "I miss this." I didn't respond. Because you can't miss something you never nurtured. But just when I thought the chapter was closed, just as I began to reclaim my days fully, an email popped up in my inbox. Subject line urgent, regarding Rachel's NDA violation. I opened it, scanned. My hands went cold. It was from Rachel's company, and what it alleged could ruin her life. Rachel's secret finally comes to light, and it's bigger than I ever imagined. This isn't just about love anymore. This is about legacy and consequences. Trust me, the next part changes everything. The subject line alone stopped me cold. Urgent, regarding Rachel's NDA violation. I must have read that email 5 times before I even blinked. It was from an internal compliance officer at Rachel's company, Cold, corporate, and deadly precise. The kind of email that doesn't use exclamation points. The kind that destroys reputations. Apparently, during her spiritual journey, Rachel had been journaling obsessively. I remembered that damn leather-bound notebook she guarded like sacred scripture. Turns out, she hadn't just been processing her truth. She'd been documenting client names, marketing strategy drafts, early campaign concepts, things explicitly protected by her company's NDA. And not only that, she'd shared excerpts of it with her creative group, with Vanessa, with forums, with strangers. Confidential ideas for a billion-dollar account now floating around online because Rachel wanted to express freely. I felt sick, not because I wanted her to suffer, but because this was so much bigger than a failed marriage. This was sabotage, of her job, her career, her identity. I had known Rachel was spiraling, but this was free fall. The email went on. They were investigating the breach. If verified, she could face termination, possible legal action, loss of future licensing. I called her. No answer. I texted, "You need to check your work email, now." 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Her voice was flat, mechanical. "Did you know? Just read it." Silence. Then, quietly, "Oh my God." I drove to the apartment. She was sitting on the floor, legs folded under her, that notebook open in her lap, pages dog-eared, stained with highlighter and tears. She looked up at me like a child caught coloring on the walls. "I didn't mean to leak anything. Intent doesn't matter. Rachel, you signed a contract." She shook her head. "They won't really sue me, will they?" I didn't answer, because honestly I didn't know. And that's when it hit her. All those mantras, all that inner work, none of it protected her from real-world consequences. She started crying, not the performative kind, real, gut-wrenching sobs. I sat across from her, not close, not touching, just witnessing. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt grief for who she used to be, for who I used to love. "I thought I was evolving," she choked out. "I thought I was building something new." I nodded slowly. "You were burning it down." Later that night, I stood in our old bedroom. She had fallen asleep on the couch, still clutching that notebook like it might save her. I picked it up, flipped through the pages. There it was, client code names, campaign slogans, even a draft email from a marketing VP. And on the back cover, scribbled in Sharpie, "You can't heal in a system designed to keep you small." A Vanessa quote, no doubt, irony so thick it made me nauseous. Because in her quest to escape the system, Rachel had become its cautionary tale. The next morning, she asked me the one question I never expected to hear. "Can you help me fix this?" It would have been so easy to say no, to walk away, to let her sit in the mess she made. But I didn't, because in that moment, I remembered who I was. Not a doormat, not a fool, but a man who once believed in her and still believed in doing the right thing. So I helped her draft an apology email, helped her identify the material she'd leaked, even connected her with a lawyer a friend of mine used during a contract dispute. She was stunned. "Why are you being so decent?" I shrugged. "Because someone has to be." The fallout came fast. She was suspended, pending investigation. The firm managed to contain most of the damage, but her name was officially stained. Her job gone, her creative freedom. A cautionary footnote. She moved out 2 weeks later. No dramatic goodbye, just a quiet exit. One suitcase, a few books. I watched her walk down the stairs and disappear into a rideshare. No tears, no regrets, just silence. The apartment felt wider after that, not emptier, just more mine. I bought a new rug, repainted the walls, donated the coffee table she always hated, but never replaced. Little acts of reclamation, symbols of something I hadn't felt in a long time, peace. One day, I found a photo wedged behind a bookshelf. It was us, 5 years ago, grinning at Coney Island, sunburned, sticky from cotton candy, completely unaware of how things would unravel. I stared at it for a while, then I put it in a box, not to forget, but to honor the version of us that once existed. The version that loved before the storm. Just as I was settling into this new chapter, I got a message. Not from Rachel, not from Vanessa. From someone else entirely. The other guy, the one she cheated with. And what he said, it shattered everything I thought I understood about this story. The final puzzle piece drops. What the other man reveals flips the entire timeline and motives on their head. Was Rachel really the manipulator? Or someone else's pawn? Brace yourself. It's all about to come full circle. The message came late. 10, 4:42 p.m. I was in bed, half watching a rerun of Frasier, sipping tea. At first, I didn't recognize the name, Derek R. Then it hit me, Rachel's coworker, the guy Vanessa had hinted about, the one Rachel was allegedly involved with. Subject line, "Hey, this is long overdue." I almost deleted it, but something in me, the same part that refused to be left in the dark ever again, clicked it open. What I read, it cracked the ground beneath everything I thought I knew. Matt, I debated for months whether to send this. I know I have no right, but I recently learned what happened with Rachel's job, and I can't stay quiet. You deserve the truth, the whole truth. My pulse spiked. Yes, Rachel and I were involved, but not in the way it looked. She didn't seduce me. I pursued her. Hard. That wasn't what I expected. I kept reading. She said no, multiple times. Said she was married, that she was trying to make things work, but I pushed. I flattered. I offered safe space. Eventually, she broke. There it was. Not manipulation, not an affair for the thrill. Wear down, a slow erosion. He continued. When she agreed to open things up, it wasn't out of freedom, it was desperation. She didn't want to lose her job, her standing. She thought if she controlled the story, she could survive the fallout. That hit harder than I'd like to admit, because I remembered how she framed it all about growth, unblocking, but beneath it all, maybe it was fear and self-preservation. He wasn't done. I don't expect forgiveness. I took advantage of someone who was unraveling. I lied to myself about it, called it connection. It wasn't. It was selfishness. She needed help. I gave her pressure. The man I'd imagined for months, some suave office seducer, was just a coward in a suit. And Rachel, maybe not the villain I thought, still responsible, but also manipulated. It didn't undo the betrayal, but it complicated the narrative in ways I hadn't prepared for. I walked to the window, looked out over the quiet street, golden street lamps flickering against summer leaves. For the first time, I didn't feel rage. I felt relief. Because, finally, I understood. Rachel wasn't trying to escape me. She was trying to outrun shame. The next morning, I forwarded the email to myself, then archived it. No response to Derek. I didn't owe him anything, but I needed that truth, if only to close a door without it slamming shut behind me. Weeks passed. Rachel stayed gone. I never heard whether she got a new job, never asked. I did run into Vanessa again at the same cafe where she first confessed. She looked different, tired, makeup lighter, clothes less, curated. She saw me, nodded, then came over, slowly. "Hey," she said, "you look good. Peace'll do that to you," I replied. She smiled, soft. "I'm sorry, again, for everything." I looked at her for a moment. "You know what's wild," I said. "You thought you were helping her find freedom, but you were just giving her better words to justify being scared." She blinked, didn't deny it. And that, somehow, made her more human. Later that week, I found myself packing a weekend bag. Kara had invited me upstate her brother's cabin, some hiking, bonfire talk, real stars. I hesitated, then said yes. Not because I was chasing anything, but because, for once, nothing was chasing me. That night, before I left, I stood in my living room, lights off, moonlight spilling through the blinds. I glanced at the shelf. There, nestled between books, sat Rachel's old leather notebook. I'd meant to toss it, burn it, even, but I didn't. Because it wasn't a weapon. It was a warning, a reminder that clarity only comes when we stop letting others narrate our worth. I ran my fingers across the spine, then gently placed it back. Some stories don't need rewriting. They just need closing. But just as I zipped my bag shut, my phone buzzed. "Kara, hey, weird question. Did you ever meet Rachel's old boss, like, in person?" I frowned. No. Why? Her voice dropped. Because I just saw a post, and unless I'm losing my mind, He looks exactly like someone we both know. Pause. Heartbeat in my ears. Vanessa's ex-husband, the one she claimed abused her, he's Rachel's former VP. My vision narrowed. Time slowed. Everything, the open marriage, the pressure, the NDA leak, the spiral, was it all orchestrated? And if so, why? The truth was never just emotional. It was strategic, and someone's been pulling strings from the shadows the entire time. See, you don't want to miss the end. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there, staring at the ceiling fan, slicing the darkness into pieces. Kara's voice echoing in my mind. Vanessa's ex, he's Rachel's former VP. And suddenly, the timeline didn't just bend, it shattered. What were the odds? What were the chances that the woman who infiltrated our marriage, whispered poison under the guise of liberation, just happened to have been married to the man who led the very company that ended up threatening Rachel's career? Unless it wasn't chance. I dug. Not out of spite, out of instinct. A quick LinkedIn search confirmed it. Vanessa's ex-husband, Trevor Landon, former chief marketing officer at Halden & Wexley, Rachel's firm, resigned a year ago after personal matters and a hush-hush HR settlement. It clicked. Rachel never mentioned his name, just that her VP was old money, alpha, and impossible to please, the type who made female employees prove twice as much while smiling half as often. And Vanessa, she had always played the victim in their divorce story, told Rachel that Trevor was emotionally manipulative, professionally oppressive, that she'd left him to find her voice. But what if this, our entire unraveling, wasn't about voice at all? What if it was about vengeance? I met Kara the next morning at the cabin. She was already on the porch, 2 mugs of coffee steaming in the crisp air. I went deeper. She said before I even sat down. Vanessa and Trevor were married 6 years. She got nothing in the split. No equity, no payout. He buried her. I exhaled. So she used Rachel. Kara nodded. Rachel was the perfect mark. Ambitious, eager, a little lost, and closest to Trevor's world. She paused, then said the part I hadn't dared think. She didn't just want to ruin his career. She wanted to dismantle everything connected to him, his protégés, his firm's reputation, even you. The room spun, because it fit. Vanessa had inserted herself into our lives right when Rachel's relationship with her VP started to fracture. She pushed the open marriage idea when Rachel's frustration at work peaked, and she encouraged Rachel to express herself freely, even when that meant violating corporate boundaries. She gave her the notebook. She gave her the quotes. She gave her the matches. All Rachel had to do was strike. Suddenly, I didn't know who to feel sorry for anymore. Rachel was still responsible. But had she ever stood a chance? And me? I'd just been collateral. I confronted Vanessa. I didn't plan to. I just drove back to the city and found myself outside her apartment, heart pounding. She opened the door, surprised but not shocked. "Matt, you lied to all of us." Her eyes flickered. "Did I?" she said softly, "or did I just stop playing small?" I stepped inside, uninvited. "You used Rachel to take him down. He took everything from me." Her voice cracked. My work, my reputation, my voice. Rachel was just the first one who actually listened. I stared at her, not angry, just empty. She lost her job, her mind, her marriage. And you're still standing. Vanessa's chin trembled. I told her to stop journaling names. She didn't listen. I didn't want her to get hurt. But she did, and Vanessa watched. I turned to leave. Vanessa called after me. "She loved you. You know?" I stopped, didn't turn around. "Maybe," I said, but it wasn't enough to keep her from choosing chaos. And I walked out, for good. Months passed. Rachel eventually resurfaced. She emailed once a long, winding letter that read more like therapy homework than apology. She said she was living in Portland, working at a co-op, taking a break from corporate life, said she finally understood the difference between healing and hiding. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just thanked me for being the one person who didn't twist her story for sport. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because I'd learned something far more valuable than revenge. Closure isn't an answer, it's a choice. As for me, I started writing again. The funny thing about surviving someone else's plot is, it makes you want to write your own. I self-published a book fiction, but not really. It got modest traction, enough for a niche newsletter, then a podcast, then a community. People wrote in, told me their stories, told me how they'd been Vanessa'd, or how they'd been a Rachel. I listened. I healed. I moved on. And Kara. She stuck around, not as a rebound, but as a reminder that not every woman sees a man as a stepping stone or a shield. Some just see you, plain and whole. There's a quiet power in not needing closure from the ones who broke you, in knowing the full story and choosing peace anyway. If you've made it this far, thank you for walking through the wreckage with me. And if you're ever tempted to open a door that smells like smoke and sounds like a second chance, just make sure it's not someone else holding the match. If this story hit home, drop a comment below. Have you ever trusted the wrong person only to find out they were part of something bigger? Let's talk. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. New true life drama drops every week. Until then, protect your peace, always. Story. The noise of my motorcycle shop fills the air, the hum of engines, the clinking of tools, the scent of oil and gas. This is my world. This is where I feel at home. But that day, that moment, it all shattered. I'm Jensen, 34 years old, and I run a classic motorcycle repair shop right here in Austin, Texas. I've worked my ass off to get here. Built this business from the ground up with nothing but a wrench in my hand and the drive to make something real. 140s, $1,000 a year. Steady work. A 6-month waiting list for custom builds. That's my reality. But what was once a dream, something I built with sweat and blood, became the very thing that got taken for granted. A few days ago, I found out my fiancée, Stacy, the woman I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, had been playing me for a fool. She was live on Instagram, talking about me, talking about us, only it wasn't what you'd expect. No, she wasn't showing off the wedding planning or our life together. She was boasting about how she tricked me, about how easy it was to manipulate me into paying for everything while she went off with her ex, Brad. And I watched it all. I was sitting at home, working on some plans for a new custom bike, minding my own business, when her live stream popped up. Bride Tribe Confessions, a harmless name, right? It was just supposed to be a fun girls' night, but I had no idea that the fun would be at my expense. Taylor, her friend, asked her, "So how's Jensen really handling the wedding planning? Is he still tracking every penny like a robot?" Stacy laughed. "Oh my God, he's such a dumbass. He thinks this whole wedding is just about ticking boxes, budgets, timelines. He doesn't get it. He doesn't get how I'm going to redo his stupid garage." The garage, the one I built with my own hands, the one I've been pouring my soul into for the past 10 years. Then came the worst part. She said it like it was nothing, like I wasn't even there. The garage. Yeah, that's the first thing to go. I'm already planning to turn it into a filming studio. Jensen can rent space somewhere else if he wants to play with his bikes. My heart sank. I couldn't breathe for a moment. I stared at the screen, watching as her words took root in my chest, growing deeper with every second. It wasn't just the garage. It was everything I thought we were building together, torn down in an instant. I wasn't just some guy in the background of her perfect life. I wasn't a prop in her influencer dreams. I typed, "Good to know, wedding's off." The panic that spread across her face in that instant, it was priceless. Her friends started panicking, trying to end the stream, but it was too late. The damage was done. Everyone knew. Everyone would know. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just about a wedding. This was about something much bigger. I don't care about the wedding anymore. Hell, I don't even care about her. But what I do care about is respect. What I care about is justice. And if she thinks she can walk all over me, I'll show her just how wrong she is. I'm Jensen, and I'm about to show Stacy exactly what happens when you play the game of manipulation. I've always been the kind of guy who likes to build things. When I was a kid, my father ran an auto repair shop. I'd spend hours in the garage, handed tools, taught how to fix everything from a busted engine to a broken heart. He didn't just teach me how to work on cars, he taught me how to build something that lasts. But when I started my own shop, I knew I wanted more. I didn't want to just fix cars. I wanted to create something people could rely on. So, I started working on bikes. Classic bikes. Custom bikes. There's something about the way a bike roars to life when it's done right. That's the feeling I live for. And I did it. I made it happen. But while I was busy building my business, Stacy was building something else entirely. Stacy was the kind of woman who had everything handed to her. Her father, Robert, was a retired Marine colonel who started a security consulting firm. He always respected me, appreciated my work ethic, and even stopped by the shop to talk bikes. But Karen, her mother, she was something else. I remember the first time I met her. She gave me this look, this disdainful look that said, "You're not good enough for my daughter, but I'll tolerate you." And boy, did I feel it. "Jensen, darling," she'd say, "what is it that you do again?" "Oh, motorcycles. How cute. Not real work, I suppose." The way she'd phrase it, always a smile, always that subtle little jab. It wasn't just the money, though. It was everything. The way she saw me, she thought I was some kind of joke. And Stacy, she loved it. She loved the attention, the compliments, the way her mother talked down to me like I was some lowly mechanic who didn't deserve her time. It wasn't just about the money. It was about status. It was about having something bigger, something better. And I was just a guy with a shop. It wasn't until we started dating that I realized how much Stacy cared about appearances, about Instagram, about the aesthetic. I remember one day, I showed her this house we were looking at, a beautiful place with a garage and workshop big enough for my bikes. Her response, "Can we turn the garage into a content creation studio instead? I mean, you can just rent a space somewhere else. I'd need a walk-in closet, too, of course. And maybe an office for when I hit 100K followers." I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. I was trying to show her something I worked hard for, something I believed in, and she didn't even care. Her words echoed in my head. "I'll get to 100K followers, and then we'll be on a different level." She didn't see me. She didn't see what I was building. She didn't care about my passion, my work, my future. She cared about what she could take from me. I worked harder than ever after that, took on custom jobs, pushed my shop to be the best in Austin. But Stacy was out chasing the next big thing, trying to become some influencer who didn't need a job. Every time we went out to eat, she'd talk about how she couldn't afford a Range Rover, or how she needed a better camera for her Instagram shots. Every single thing was about what she didn't have. Never once did she stop to ask about my work. Not once. It was always about what she could get from me. And that night, when I saw that live stream, I realized she didn't just want my money, she wanted my life. But I wasn't about to let her take it. As I sat there, replaying her words over and over in my head, a new realization hit me. This wasn't just about me being cheated on. This was about my entire life being manipulated, being used, and the next steps I take. They won't just be about revenge. They'll be about taking back control. And trust me, you won't believe what happens next. Hit that like button if you think people like Stacy deserve to be put in their place. Subscribe if you're ready to see how this all goes down. The air in the garage was thick with the smell of motor oil and gasoline. It was familiar, comforting even. I've spent countless hours here, working, fixing, building, creating something that meant something to me. My hands are steady with the wrench, my eyes focused on the engine in front of me, but my mind is somewhere else. It's like my whole life's been turned upside down, all because of one video, one moment of betrayal that I didn't even know was coming. I'm Jensen, 34 years old, and I'm a mechanic. I've built my business from nothing, crafted a reputation in Austin, Texas, for being the guy you go to if you want a vintage bike restored right. Harley-Davidsons, Indians, Triumphs, they all come through my shop. But none of that matters now. None of it. I thought I had everything under control. I had the shop, my customers, my work ethic, but what I didn't have was Stacy's respect. She was supposed to be my partner, my equal. Instead, she treated me like I was some stepping stone for her to reach her own goals. I met Stacy 3 years ago at a bike rally. She was different from the women I'd been with before. Attractive, confident, full of life. I thought I'd found the one, but it didn't take long for the cracks to show. Stacy wasn't like the women I dated in the past, women who had their own careers, their own ambitions. No, Stacy was obsessed with social media, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook. It was like she lived her life through her phone. At first, I didn't mind. I supported her dream of becoming an influencer. I figured it was something she was passionate about. But as time went on, I started to realize that her dream wasn't about us anymore. It was about her. Every time I'd show her a new bike I'd been working on, she'd glance at it for a second, then look back at her phone. "That's nice," she'd say, but I could tell her mind was somewhere else, somewhere more exciting. She would drag me to trendy spots to take pictures of her coffee cup or her lunch, making sure the right filters were on, and then complain about how she couldn't afford a Range Rover. A Range Rover. We were barely making ends meet some months, but that was her dream. And I let it slide. I let it slide because I thought we were building a life together. I thought if I kept working hard, kept doing what I loved, things would work out. But I was wrong. When we started house hunting, I showed her this beautiful property. It had a huge 3-car garage, plenty of space for my bikes. I thought she'd be excited. Instead, she looked at me and said, "Can we turn the garage into a content creation studio, for my influencing?" That was the moment it hit me. I wasn't her partner. I was her resource, someone to fund her fantasies. But it wasn't just about money. No, it was about something deeper, something more personal. Stacy didn't understand what it meant to sacrifice for something you care about. She didn't see how much I poured into this shop, into this business. She didn't see how I worked weekends, how I stayed up late repairing engines, how I busted my ass every single day to make sure we could live comfortably. All she saw was me as a means to an end. I tried to talk to her about it, tried to explain how hurt I was by her lack of interest in what mattered to me. But every time, she'd brush it off with a laugh or change the subject. "Jensen, you're so cute when you get worked up over the shop. But trust me, once I hit 100K followers, we'll be living the good life. I'm just doing what's necessary to get there. Boy." 100K followers. And every time she said it, my gut twisted a little more. Every time she mentioned her influencer dreams, I felt the gap between us grow wider. But I didn't say anything. I kept quiet, kept working harder to provide, because that's what I knew. I knew how to build things, how to fix things, how to make something real. But she was building a dream that didn't include me. It wasn't until that night, when I clicked on her live stream by accident, that I saw it all for what it was. It was late. I was at home working on a custom job for a client. The TV was on, but I wasn't really paying attention to it. Then I saw Taylor's live stream notification. Stacy had posted about her bride tribe confessions, and something in me told me to click. I don't know why. Maybe I thought it'd be harmless. Maybe I wanted to know what kind of things she was sharing with her friends. But what I saw, that wasn't just harmless. Stacy, laughing with her friends, all of them seated around a table, a glass of wine in hand, talking about me like I wasn't even there. "How's Jensen handling all this wedding stuff?" Taylor asked. "Oh my God, Jensen is such a dumbass." Stacy laughed. "He thinks this whole wedding is about timelines, budgets, ticking boxes. But I've got bigger things on my mind, like how I'm going to redecorate his stupid garage." I felt the air leave my lungs. Her words were like daggers. But the worst part, she wasn't even trying to hide it. She was bragging about how she'd already lined up a contractor to destroy my garage. the one I built with my own hands, and turn it into something she could use. And when I saw her say it, I felt my stomach drop. That was my sanctuary. That was the place I poured my soul into, where I found peace, and she was going to tear it down, just like that. I sat there, staring at the screen, my heart racing, my mind reeling. Was this how she really felt? Was this what she'd been thinking all along? Then the words came to me, the words I didn't know I needed to hear, the words that would change everything. I typed them into the chat without thinking. Good to know. Wedding's off. The silence that followed was deafening. Stacy's face drained of color as she saw my comment. The room went quiet. But I wasn't finished. I typed again. Let's be clear. Stacy, if you think you can use me as a stepping stone for your influencer dreams, you've got another thing coming. The wedding is off, and so is us. Her eyes widened as she scrambled to end the stream, but the damage was done. The words were out there, and I couldn't take them back. That moment marked the beginning of the end, but the end wasn't just about a relationship falling apart. It was about something much bigger. This wasn't just about Stacy using me. This was about taking back control, about standing up for what I've built. And now, I had a decision to make. As I sat there, the reality of what I'd just done started to sink in, but deep down, I knew I had to act. The wedding was off, yes, but the battle, that was just beginning. Like if you think Jensen made the right call, comment your thoughts. Do you think this is just a fight for his business, or something more? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. My heart was still hammering when I rolled into the shop that morning. The sun hadn't even fully risen, but the parking lot was already half full. I parked the truck, grabbed my tool bag, and braced myself for what felt like a trap. The air smelled of diesel and ozone, but beneath it all I could taste acid, my anxiety mixing with the scent of gasoline. As I stepped through the front door, I saw them, Stacy and her mother, Karen, standing smack in the middle of the waiting area. Stacy's phone was out, recording. Karen's designer handbag was slung over her arm like an armor plate. My shop manager, Diego, was blocking their path to the workshop with a stiff-arm gesture. "Mr. Thompson isn't here yet," Diego said, voice low but firm. Stacy scoffed. Her eyes, once the ones that lit up when I fixed her bike, were cold. "He'll be here," she drawled, "and he's going to explain to my mother why he decided to humiliate the entire Parker family on live stream." A knot twisted in my gut. Humiliate. That word felt like a punch to the solar plexus. I clenched my fists. This was my workspace, my sanctuary, not a reality show set for their drama. I strode forward, wrench in one hand, wallet in the other, in case I needed it for, well, I wasn't sure what. "Stacy," I said, forcing my voice calm. My throat felt like sandpaper. "What are you doing here?" She looked me up and down, as if seeing me for the first time in over a decade. I came to collect what's mine. Karen stepped forward, planting her feet. "Young man, you owe my daughter an explanation and an apology to all these people," she said, gesturing to the customers peeking from behind service desks. "You can't just call off a wedding and expect no one to react." I looked out at the customers. A few fiddled with their phones, others shifted uncomfortably. I felt the weight of their eyes, like they were waiting for me to fail. "Ladies," I said, raising my hands, "this is a place of business. If you're here to talk, let's step outside." They wouldn't budge. Instead, Stacy held her phone up. "Everyone, this is the real Jensen," she announced, voice dripping with false sympathy, "the man who cares more about bikes than about his fiancée, the man who thinks a garage is more important than a marriage." My chest tightened. Every muscle in my body screamed at me to grab the phone and smash it. Instead, I swallowed and pointed to Diego. "Escort them out, please." Diego hesitated. He's been with me since day one, a former Army reservist who knows how to handle tense situations. He gave me a look that said, "You sure?" I nodded. As Diego gently guided them toward the door, Karen slammed her hand against a workbench. A loud clunk echoed through the shop. Mechanics froze, wrenches in midair. "Don't you dare touch my daughter's dreams," Karen hissed, glaring back at me. "You think you're some self-made man. You wouldn't last a week in my world." My hands went cold. I realized then this had nothing to do with respect. It was all about power. They were wielding their social status like a club, and I was supposed to cower. They stumbled out into the early morning light, cameras still rolling. I watched them go, then looked at Diego. His jaw was tight. "She reactivated her burner email," he said. "Sent it to our top clients, claims you have gambling debts. Cheated on Stacy with someone at the shop. A few already canceled builds this morning." My stomach dropped. The thermostat on the shop's main wall read 72 degrees, but I felt like I was standing in the desert. Sweat beaded on my forehead. Which clients I managed to ask? The Rodriguez and Freeman accounts. They were big, worth over $28,000 combined. My own phone buzzed. I checked it, 2 unread texts from unknown. I opened the first. "I hear Jensen is unstable. Not safe around women. Cancel your builds." The second, "I know where he lives." A cold spike of fear shot down my spine. An invasion of privacy. A coordinated smear. I took a shaky breath and stepped into the workshop. My sanctuary had been turned into enemy territory. My tools felt heavy in my grip. I paced among the rows of bikes in various states of restoration. The chrome glinted under the fluorescent lights, each polished surface mocking me. This was supposed to be my refuge, the place I poured my soul into. Now it felt like a prison. I ran a hand through my hair, then dialed Sarah, my lawyer.
Hey, Sarah, we've got a situation.
Her voice over the line was calm. "Professionalism. Send me everything you have, emails, texts, recordings. I'll start drafting filings for defamation and trespassing." Another client walked in, keys jingling. He froze when he saw the tension in my eyes. "You okay, Jensen?" I plastered on a smile that felt like a costume. "Yeah, all good. Just dealing with some personal stuff." He hesitated and handed me his keys. I overheard him mutter to the receptionist. "Heard some nasty rumors. I'll think about it." Then he turned and walked out. My chest felt empty, like someone had ripped out a beating heart. I slammed my fist against the bench. Sparks flew as my wedding ring-scarred fist met metal. The ring burned my finger with the force of impact. The symbol of our commitment seared into flesh. And suddenly, it wasn't a reminder of love. It was a brand of betrayal. I sank onto a stool, hands trembling. Every sound in the shop was magnified: the drip of a leak, the hiss of air tools, the soft hum of the compressor. I felt my pulse in my ears, loud and insistent. I knew I couldn't let this slide. Not after what Stacy did, not after she publicly humiliated me, not after she tried to destroy my sanctuary and my reputation. I stood up, wiped the blood from my knuckles onto a rag, and looked at the workbench where I'd repaired my first Harley. That bike was my symbol, proof that hard work and integrity still mattered in this world. I wiped away sweat and blood. It was time for action. I gathered my phone, my keys, and a notebook. In the driveway, I spotted my old toolbox, the one I used in college. I tossed it in the back of the truck, along with some essential dishes and clothes. I was leaving. Diego pulled up beside me and handed me a duffel bag. "My place is open. We'll sort this out." As I climbed into the truck, I looked back at the shop, the place that had been my dream, now a battlefield. I started the engine, the roar of the V-twin filling my ears. My heart pounded to the rhythm of the bike. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew one thing: I was done running. As I drove off, my phone lit up with a new call. "Mr. Thompson, this is the Texas State Police. We've had a report of unauthorized entries into your property. Your ex-fiancé claims trespassing. You need to respond immediately." The call came in just as I was lacing up my boots. "Mr. Thompson, this is Officer Ramirez with the Texas State Police," the voice said. We've had a report of unauthorized entry at your workshop. Your ex-fiancé claims trespassing. You need to come down and give a statement." My heart sank. The garage, my sanctuary, had become the battleground. I grabbed my keys, my phone buzzing with a dozen new texts, burner emails, anonymous threats, clients canceling jobs. My wedding ring felt hot against my skin, a weight of betrayal I couldn't shake. I drove through Austin's early evening light, the city buzzing around me. Every stoplight felt like an ambush. At the station, Officer Ramirez led me to a small interview room.
Mr. Thompson, we received a complaint from a Karen Parker saying she saw you breaking into your own property, he explained, handing me a copy of the report.
I forced a laugh I didn't feel. "Officer, that's impossible. I own the shop. I've been here all day. Karen Parker trespassed. Not me." He nodded, took my statement, and said, "We'll look at your security footage. If you have any other evidence videos, emails, bring them in." As I stepped back into the cooling Texas night, every nerve in my body was on fire. My hands trembled as I unlocked the truck. I drove straight to Sarah's office, my lawyer, confidant, and the only person who'd taken my side since this all began. Sarah greeted me at the door, clipboard in hand. Her office smelled of leather-bound books and coffee. She didn't offer small talk. She'd already seen my texts. "Show me everything," she said. I dumped my phone on her desk, screenshots of the live stream, client emails with false rumors, burner account threats, and, most important, the 40-minute video of Stacy and her friends plotting to demolish my garage. Sarah tapped her pen. "We're filing 2 motions, 1 temporary restraining order against all parties, Parker, her mother, anyone involved, 2 defamation suit for the smear campaign. Texas is a one-party consent state. You legally recorded that live stream. That video is gold." I nodded, relief flooding me. Finally, legal muscle behind my anger. "But first," Sarah continued, "we secure any symbols of this betrayal." She pointed at my wedding ring. "Remove it. It's evidence of the engagement you terminated." My fingers closed around the ring, once a promise. Now a brand marking the moment I woke up. I slipped it off and placed it in an envelope labeled Exhibit A. "Next," she said, sliding me forms to sign. "We need to notify your clients. A calm, honest statement. You're the victim of a coordinated attack. Drop hints about pending legal action without revealing details. And we'll file the restraining order this evening. Hearings in 48 hours. My mind raced. 28 clients, 6-figure backlog, 2 major projects canceled already. A further hit could sink my shop. I needed to move fast. I met Ryan outside, a former Marine turned friend, who'd offered his spare bedroom when the harassment went too far. He carried a duffel bag of tools and a cooler with cold water and sandwiches. "I've got your back," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "Let's get you safe." We headed back to the shop, but not to work. Instead, we installed motion-activated cameras at every entrance, wired them to my phone. Ryan crawled under windows, drilling mounts. I crawled under the workbench, sweat dripping onto the concrete floor. Every creak of metal felt like an explosion. By midnight, the cameras were live. I checked my phone 4 angles, crisp enough to spot a mouse. I tested motion alerts, instant notifications pinged my screen. I sat on a stool in the dark workshop, surrounded by half-finished bikes. The only light was the glow of my phone. I tapped through footage, the empty shop, the rolling shutter doors, the quiet hum of the street outside. I thought back to the livestream, Stacy's smug face, her laughter echoing off Chrome. The symbolic moment of her announcing the garage's demise had felt like a funeral bell for everything I'd built. Now that silence was my ally. I drained the last of the water, my hand brushing the stack of paperwork on the bench. Sarah's typed affidavits, police report, client emails, all ready for morning. But even as I organized evidence, a knot of unease tightened in my gut. I trusted the law, but I also knew how stories could twist. If Karen Parker spun a tale to the cops, I couldn't just rely on footage. I needed a twist of my own. I shut down the shop, locking the main door and an extra deadbolt on the side entrance. The ring envelope went into the front safe. I slipped the venue deposit receipts and receipts for the custom ring into a folder proof of financial stakes. As I climbed into my truck, Ryan handed me a flashlight. "Sleep here tonight," he offered. I shook my head. I needed to see the shop overnight, see if someone tried to break in again. I parked in front, engine off, the shop's neon sign flickering. I sat in the driver's seat, coffee in hand, phone in the other. The cameras hummed quietly. Outside, the city lights danced on my windshield. Hours passed. Every rustle of leaves, every distant siren, pinged a notification on my phone. My chest tightened each time. When I saw a cat dart across the lot, my heart jumped. Then, at 3:47 a.m., I saw it, a shadowy figure slipping through the workshop door. The motion sensor lit up a corner of the screen. Someone crouched over my tool chest. My breath caught. I stared at the grainy image, then zoomed in. The silhouette raised something metallic. My phone crackled in my pocket with an alert. I fumbled for the flashlight, dropped it, and in the darkness, panic rose. I knew one thing for certain: this intruder wasn't just curious. They were looking for something, and it wasn't just my tools. I sat frozen, phone screen glaring. The timestamp blinked 3:47 a.m. My shop, my sanctuary, was under siege, and whoever this was, they'd crossed a line I couldn't ignore. But before I could decide my next move, a second notification flashed: incoming video call, unknown caller. The video call flickered on, and my heart skipped a beat when I saw Amy's face. My cousin Jake's wife, the only one among Stacy's friends I ever trusted. "I have been sitting on these screenshots," she said quietly, sliding her phone so I could see a group chat thread. In bold text, Taylor had written, "Step 1, tell all his female clients he's dangerous. Step 2, ruin his business." There were timestamps, threads about burner accounts, lists of client names. My chest tightened. This was the coordinated smear campaign Diego warned me about. I swallowed. "Thank you, Amy. This is exactly what I need." My voice shook equal parts relief and rage. I ended the call and dialed Sarah. "Got more evidence," I panted as she answered. I sent the chat log and the GoFundMe link. Amy discovered helped Stacy Parker with emotional distress, a fundraiser purporting to support Stacy after the abusive breakup. Sarah's tone hardened. "We'll amend the defamation suit to include conspiracy to defame and fraudulent fundraising, and we file for an emergency injunction to freeze that GoFundMe account." 2 hours later, I sat in Sarah's downtown office, thick legal pads before me. The smell of strong coffee filled the air. Sarah walked me through each step, drafting a letter to GoFundMe, demanding they freeze the page, sending cease and desist letters to the burner account owners, and filing a supplemental motion in court. Somewhere between the coffee's bitter warmth and the click-clack of her keyboard, my anger sharpened into focus. Back at the shop, I drafted an email to my clients. Fingers hovered over the keyboard as I typed. Subject: a personal message from Jensen Thompson. Body: hello friends. If you've heard rumors about gambling debts or misconduct, please know they're false. My fiancée and her associates have launched a campaign against me. I'm pursuing legal action and remain committed to your trust. If you have questions, call me directly. Thank you for your loyalty. Jensen. I reread it, heart clenching. Exposing dirty laundry felt raw, but honesty was my only shield. I pressed send. Within minutes, replies trickled in words of support, clients reinstating their builds, even a few pledges to spread the word. My stomach eased slightly. The next morning, I organized a customer appreciation day. The shop was buzzing mechanics in clean uniforms, snack tables loaded with barbecue sliders, and a banner reading, "Thank you for keeping us riding." I greeted each customer at the door, shaking hands. My palms were sweaty, but every smile I saw steadied my resolve. A young woman with a battered Triumph hugged me tight. "Your transparency means everything. We're with you, Jensen." I spent the afternoon giving free tune-ups and priority scheduling. The scent of smoked brisket and fresh engine oil mingled in the sunlit garage. I caught sight of Diego handing out raffle tickets for a custom oil change package, small but meaningful gestures. The symbol of community was clear. This shop was more than my livelihood. It was a lifeline for all of us.
Later, I met Sarah at the courthouse. We reviewed the supplemental motion. I placed the envelope containing my wedding ring next to the paperwork, my Exhibit A. Holding that ring tight, I felt its weight, once a promise, now a tool of justice. We filed and left the clerk's office with stamped copies in hand. That night, I recorded a video update for the channel. The shop's neon sign glowed behind me. My shirt was stained with grease. Sleeves rolled up. I looked into the camera. Voice clear. "Hey everyone, Jensen here. It's been a rough week. Defamation, trespassing reports, even a fraudulent fundraiser. But thanks to your trust, we're fighting back with truth and the law. I've filed suit, frozen the fundraiser, and tomorrow I'll be in court to seek a permanent restraining order. I appreciate every one of you who's stuck by me. We'll ride through this together." I held up the ring in my hand. This symbol taught me my worth. No one gets to take down what we've built together. I flashed a tired smile, then clicked off the camera. For a moment, I sat in the dark shop, the ring glinting under the overhead lights. I thought of Stacy's smug laugh in that live stream, of her friends' plotting whispers. I felt a surge of righteous pride. We were turning the tide. But then, my phone buzzed with a notification from a local news alert. Mechanic's fiancé files for restraining order. He claims emotional abuse. I frowned. The article quoted Karen Parker's side. He's the aggressive one, and even included photos of me packing my truck that one night. It framed me as the villain. My own narrative was being twisted again. My heart pounded. The smear campaign was evolving on its own. It wasn't just about defamation anymore. It was a full-blown PR war. If the public believed the headlines, all my legal victories could crumble under public opinion. I opened GoFundMe again, still active, though frozen, with Stacy's picture and sob story up top. Comments sympathetic to Stacy outnumbered the donations to my legal fund. My stomach knotted. I slammed my fist on the bench, chrome rattling under my hand. I had proof. I had the law. But if I couldn't win hearts, I could lose everything. Just then, my phone lit up with an email from a big-name PR firm, Sanders & Co. Public Relations, your story, our expertise. I stared at the screen, knowing I needed help. But could I trust a PR company as much as I trusted my wrench? The ring's weight in my pocket felt heavier than ever. I gazed at the ring and the PR email, simultaneously legal action or professional spin. My next move would decide not just the verdict in court, but the verdict of public opinion. Which path would I choose? I wake up to sunlight streaming through the blinds of Ryan's spare bedroom. My phone is buzzing emails, texts, news alerts. My head pounds from a half-night's adrenaline and caffeine, but I force myself out of bed. Today is the day I see the impact of everything we've done. I dress in my usual work shirt, grease-stained sleeves rolled up, and slip the wedding ring envelope into my jacket pocket. That little manila envelope has become my talisman Exhibit A in the courtroom, a reminder of why I fought this battle. Ryan's already in the kitchen, making coffee. The smell of dark roast grounds fills the air. He hands me a cup. "You look ready," he says, eyes kind but tired. "They're airing your statement on Channel 6 at 8. I nod, heart racing. We step outside and into Ryan's truck, headed for the shop. I want to be there when the media hits, to see faces, to gauge reaction. The garage turned stronghold. Pulling up, I notice the Support Jensen signs someone has left taped to the front windows. One customer, Mrs. Serrano. Oven chalk justice for Jensen on the sidewalk. My sanctuary, the very place Stacy and her crew targeted, feels reborn, fortified. Inside, the team has gathered. Diego, wiping down a custom frame, Mike, polishing chrome, Lucia, filing client paperwork. They look up as I enter. I raise my coffee mug. "Morning, everyone," I say. "Let's see what we've built." On the workbench,
I set up my phone to live stream the local news broadcast. The news anchor's voice floats through the garage speakers.
In a landmark decision this morning, Judge Carter granted a permanent restraining order against Stacey Parker and her associates, citing a pattern of harassment, defamation, and trespassing. In addition, GoFundMe has officially frozen the Parker Emotional Distress Fund after finding evidence of fraudulent representation.
We all watch in stunned silence. Then the anchor continues. Attorney Sarah Michaels also announced that the defamation suit will proceed, with several high-profile clients publicly retracting false statements. Mr. Jensen Thompson, a local business owner, is expected to seek damages next month. A cheer goes up. Diego slaps me on the back. "That's our guy," he says. My chest tightens not from triumph, but relief. The glass panels of the garage doors catch the morning light, casting long shadows across the workshop floor. I can almost see Stacey's face, drained of color, the moment she realizes the law is on my side. Stacey's world unravels later that afternoon. My phone buzzes with another alert, a press release from Sanders & Co., Public Relations, the firm I finally decided to hire. They crafted a flawless statement.
Mr. Thompson has shown remarkable restraint and integrity in the face of a malicious campaign. We appreciate the community's support and remain committed to upholding truth and fairness.
Within hours, the story spreads to regional and even national outlets. Comments on social media shift from rumors to words of encouragement. Even the harshest skeptics begin to backtrack. Meanwhile, I hear from Amy. She texts me these messages. "Taylor got canned today. Her boss saw her sending those emails from company time. They're calling it a serious breach of trust. Karen's divorce papers were filed this morning. Robert served her and Stacey out of the blue." I sit back in my chair, hands still trembling. Two twists I never saw coming. Taylor's professional downfall and Robert's ultimatum. The people who fueled Stacey's smear machine were now facing consequences of their own. The symbol of the ring. I pull the envelope from my pocket and hold it up to the light. The ring inside glints, the gold softened by months of conflict. I remember sliding it off my finger the night I filed for the restraining order, the first real act of taking back control. That ring has shown me my worth, more than a promise broken. It became a symbol of resilience. I place it on the workbench next to a half-repaired Triumph engine. The juxtaposition feels fitting, a shattered commitment sitting beside a project rebuilding itself, piece by piece. Robert's support. That evening, I hear a knock at the garage door. I open it to find Robert Stacey's father in a crisp suit, face solemn but sincere. He steps inside, glancing at the work-in-progress bikes. "Jensen," he begins, voice low. "I came to apologize for everything." I nod, wary but curious. "I underestimated your character. I'm sorry for how I treated you, and for how Karen and Stacey behaved. I've cut them off financially. I want you to know if you ever need a friend, you have one in me." His words hang in the air. The man who once looked down on me is now offering respect. I clasp his hand. "Thank you," I say. "I appreciate it." He motions to the ring. That ring she broke more than an engagement, but you held on to it, and now it's yours to keep or to let go. I look at it again, and for the first time feel truly free. Community enclosure. Over the next week, the shop hums with renewed energy. Clients return, new referrals arrive, and my calendar is booked solid for months. I even hired 2 more mechanics, Diego as a partner and Lucia to manage client relations. Our custom-build backlog has never looked better. One morning, I stand outside, coffee in hand, watching a group of loyal customers roll in for a charity ride we organized in support of veterans with PTSD. An idea I'd almost scrapped before the breakup. Now, it feels perfect a way to give back. The ride winds through Austin's hill country, bikes roaring in unison. I lead the pack, ring on a simple chain around my neck, shining in the sun. But the final twist. Just as I'm ready to declare victory, my phone buzzes with an urgent notification, a court docket update. My defamation suit hearing has been moved up fast-tracked so Stacy can respond quickly. The email from Sarah reads, "The judge wants a full hearing next week. They're giving her one last chance to contest. This is do or die." My hands tighten around the phone. The victory lap, the community ride, Robert's apology, all of it could be reversed if Stacy's lawyer finds a way to twist the story one more time. I take a deep breath, feeling the Texas wind on my face. The ring at my chest warms with my pulse. I gaze at the garage, my fortress, my battlefield. I know what I have to do next. As I walk back inside to prepare for the accelerated hearing, my phone pings again, a single message from an unknown number. "You think you've won. Wait until the world sees what I have in store." The courtroom was packed, the air thick with anticipation, and the faint smell of polished wood. I felt the weight of every eye on me, friends, clients, strangers drawn by the drama. My hands tightened around the folder of evidence. Today would decide everything.
Judge Carter took her seat, gavels rapping to call the room to order. The restraining order and defamation motions had already been granted. This was about damages and a final resolution. Stacy sat to my left, flanked by her lawyer. She wore that same hollow look she'd had at the hearing 3 weeks ago, like a starlet whose illusion had been shattered.
I glanced at Robert sitting behind me, his posture rigid but supportive. His own betrayal of family loyalties had been a twist I never saw coming. Yet here he was, silently cheering me on. That gesture, his attendance, was the ultimate third character in this saga, the one who helped break the cycle of manipulation.
Judge Carter looked at me. "Mr. Thompson, you may present your closing remarks."
My throat felt dry. I stood, stepping into the light. The polished floor reflected the gleam of my ring envelope peeking from my jacket pocket, like a talisman of triumph and pain. "Your Honor," I began, voice steady despite the echoes in my chest. When I first stepped into this courtroom, it wasn't just to defend myself. It was to protect the values that built my life: hard work, integrity, and respect. I tapped the ring envelope. This ring was meant to symbolize a promise, but it became a reminder of betrayal. Today, it stands for something else: the cost of honesty and the price of defending one's worth. I spoke of the smear campaign, the burner emails to my female clients, the fraudulent GoFundMe, the trespassing that threatened my sanctuary. I described the Community Appreciation Day, the barbecue smoke, the chatter of bikers rallying behind me, the Triumph engine purring as I led the charity ride for veterans. I painted the scene so clearly you could almost taste the brisket and feel the roar of 50 bikes on a country road. "Those images," I said, pointing to photos displayed on a screen, one of Mrs. Serrano hugging me next to her 1954 Harley, one of local news anchors praising our fundraiser, represent this community's belief in fairness. They show that when you stand up for yourself, others stand with you. I paused and looked at Stacy. I never wanted to hurt you, but when respect and love are taken for granted, action isn't just justified, it's necessary. I chose to fight not out of spite, but out of a need for justice. Silence settled. I returned to my seat. Across the room, Stacy's lawyer rose, his rebuttal a flurry of excuses and attempts to reframe her live stream as harmless banter. But when he mentioned my age, he's just a kid whose emotions got the best of him. I felt a surge of something fiercer than anger resolve.
"Objection! Your Honor," Sarah interjected calmly. "Irrelevant attacks on character do not excuse the evidence of calculated defamation."
Judge Carter nodded and banged her gavel. The moment had passed.
After hours of testimony from clients, Amy's sworn account of the group chat, and Diego's clear recollection of their trespass, the judge announced a brief recess to deliberate. I stepped outside into the hallway, heart pounding. The corridor lights seemed too bright, the whisper of every footstep amplified.
Robert appeared beside me. "No matter what happens in there," he said quietly, "I'm proud of you." I exhaled, feeling the tension drain. He clapped me on the shoulder. "Now let's finish this." Back inside, Judge Carter returned. In the matter of Thompson v. Parker et al., the court finds in favor of Mr. Thompson. I award $45,000 in compensatory damages and $15,000 in punitive damages, plus coverage of legal fees. This court recognizes the malicious nature of the actions against Mr. O. Thompson and upholds his right to protection and restitution. A hush fell. Then, applause soft at first, then building as clients and onlookers stood. Diego's fist pumped the air. I felt tears sting my eyes as I realized we'd won. Stacy's face crumpled. Karen sank in her seat. Relief warmed me more than victory itself. After the hearing, the courthouse steps were swarming. Cameras flashed as I stepped outside, ring envelope in hand. Reporters shouted questions. I raised my voice. This outcome isn't just mine. It belongs to every person who's been silenced or used. Your worth isn't measured by likes, deposits, or prepayments. It's measured by your integrity and the respect you demand. I held up the ring enveloped in its manila badge. And this, I said, isn't about a broken promise. It's about building something stronger, piece by piece, like the bikes in my shop. Back at the garage that evening, the sign Justice for Jensen had been replaced by We Ride Together. My team was waiting. Diego, Lucia, Amy, and even Mrs. Serrano, who'd brought cupcakes. We crowded around a workbench draped in an American flag bandana, a symbol of unity and the American dream of fairness. I placed the ring on the bench next to the Triumph engine that sat half-assembled. The juxtaposition felt perfect, a broken relationship beside a machine rebuilt with care. Diego raised a soda. To new beginnings, he toasted. I gripped my can. To everyone who chose honesty over deception. I paused, thinking back on every wrench turn, every sleepless night, every courtroom moment, to the dream of a life built on respect. We drank. The air smelled of metal, oil, and sweet victory. But as the sun dipped below Austin's skyline, my phone vibrated with a single message. Congratulations. Now, let's talk partnership with a certain security firm. It was Robert, extending a hand and offer to consult on his firm's security contracts, merging my shop's mechanical expertise with his security know-how. I looked at the ring and engine one last time. My sanctuary had been a battlefield, but it was also a forge where I hardened my resolve and tempered my values. I turned back to my team and grinned. Looks like the real ride is just beginning. If you've ever stood up for yourself and won, drop A in the comments. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And hit subscribe because everyone deserves a chance to ride toward justice.